Hi, YouTube. Um, I have had so many interruptions trying to get this out here because I literally want to write a thesis, a paper on the correlation between narcissism and Satanism. So, just starting out, I have had every possible interruption this evening, and excuse the noise. I started doing this and I had talking in the background and this on purpose to try and stop me from what I'm doing, and it's not going to. So here goes. The history of narcissism, and I am going to study. I am a paraprofessional as far as pathological diseases, but I want to further my education and write that paper I'm telling you about. But I need to not. I don't need to study it. Oh, I believe I'm pretty good at dealing with it. But okay. The first Narcissus was in Greek mythology. His name was Narcissus. It was spelt Narcissus. Um, and like, I don't know if I said, but excuse my looking down. I've got notes so I can get things straight for everybody. Um, okay, what it was is he saw his image in a pool of water, and he was so in love with himself. He what he loved his image and his attributes, and uh okay, let's see. Okay, let's all right, then I went into studying. um okay, that was Greek mythology. Loved his image in a pool and his attributes. Okay, then some of the description of what a narcissist is the pursuit of gratification from vanity or ego. It's a pathological disorder, described as self-absorbent, absorption, self-image, and addiction to fantasy with unusual coolness. Um, Sounds like Satan to me. Sigmund Freud said it was normal in childhood. Now, I don't hold a lot of what would the word? I don't hold a lot of respect in everything that Sigmund Freud put out there, because there was some of his teachings about children that I thoroughly disagree with. That really don't help kids. But anyway, so he described it as normal in childhood, but that it was a disorder. In the childhood stage, it was normal. After that, in puberty, then it was considered a mental disorder, um, which he described as impaired empathy. Well, on a certain extent, a Satanist can even empathize. It doesn't mean, and they sympathize with each other. They can even empathize with each other. But to literally be able to think your thoughts or feel the way you do, they can with a coolness, like more of a premeditation of what you're going to do so they can sabotage you. Um, in The first study of it was in 1898 by a British man named Dr. Havelock Ellis. And he identified it as pathological self absorption. And then there is a scale called the MPI, Narcissist Personality Inventory. So there's different scales of, and there's a thesis. So that just means it's a theory, a paper that's written whether it's inherited or learned. So, do we inherit it or is it learned? Well, see, now everybody's got a little bit of narcissistic. That's your drive, your self preservation. But when it goes on the cruel side of stuff, it's not normal. So, um, and when some of us have been around a lot of it, we recognize that we have that ability. We all have that ability. It's just whether or not we act on it. It's like, well, um, I'm looking in the mirror. Oh, gee, you're cute. But you know what? I think you're cute too. I think you might even be cuter. Am I jealous? Yeah, I love you. But a narcissist is going to say, I think you're cute to anybody else. In fact, a lot of them actually think they're ugly and they have to boast about themselves because it makes them feel better. I've met them. Then I've met ones that actually do think they're God's gift, So, or they are God, you know. So then I was thinking, being that there was that satanic panic, is what they called it in the 1980s and 90s, stemming from a preschool in California that was raided, and they found out that there was Satanism in there and whatnot. And this raised a big stir, especially in the United States, as far as people worried about Satanists all of a sudden. Well, it wasn't all of a sudden. I've been studying this all my life because, of course, the battle between good and evil being spiritual, um, I always knew the difference between right and wrong and wanted to battle the wrongs in life. So I've kind of always been like a warrior like that. But so I know that the person born into this world described as Satan was conceived in 1949. And so my studies, I wanted to see if there was any science studies done on narcissists, specifically in the 1950s, where this thing would have been a child. And sure enough, and this is weird as hell, um, there's a paper I read, Science Direct did studies through the 1950s and 60s on narcissists and mothering revisited. So, and what they described in there was the child's need from the mother not being met, and that's what turned them narcissistic. Well, you know, this is all a paper to disguise the Satanism that's going on, and that I can't prove, but I think with enough backing and enough people and knowledge that I can make this correlation and prove this. And I've seen a narcissist father turn the children into narcissists. Um, I believe it depends on who that child looks up to and why, and how they're conditioned to look up to that parent and why, or whether it was a single parent, or there's so many variations on the whole thing. And then uh let's see, that's kind of, so if you want to look at that article that they wrote, like I say, it's just a thesis, so it would be their theory. And really, how could one go about proving that narcissists are Satanists? But I have never met a narcissist that didn't display Satanistic tendencies. Because if you're around cruel people, they're not of God, obviously. So that kind of brings me to another thing where I've actually given my heart out and literally wanted to help somebody I'm suspecting is probably one of the greatest narcissist actors out there. But I'm going to give that some prayer and some thought and consideration and see what God tells me to do on that note. So, um, my video earlier with Satan being mentioned in the Bible for the first time as the adversary. But then I was thinking, well, why is that out there like that when the serpent was in the garden, supposedly bugging Eve, you know? And I still say that it wasn't that woman's fault. Where was her man? You know, yeah, right, whatever. And leave it up to men that rewrote the Bible to misconstrue anything that would be in there. So reading with our hearts is an absolute must. I mean, one thing we know for sure that the Ten Commandments and the seven deadly sins are great tools to abide by in life, regardless. And believing in Jesus Christ and realizing that Jesus died for our sins is a modern thing. I believe we're in Revelation times. Um, well, I'm going to let this go. I really apologize for the noise. I had this planned and written out, and I actually probably had a little more to say on it, which I may gather my thoughts. There may be a part two to this. I had the prelude. Well, maybe I'll have a epilogue. So, I love you all. Thank you for joining me, and we'll talk soon. And I bet you feel the same way. You ever met a narcissist that didn't remind you of Satan? You know, I'm not just talking about somebody that's possessed. I'm talking about this bloodline that loves exactly what they're doing whenever they can try and hurt somebody. So, um, guard your heart, my friends. I love you. Peace and love from Pine City, Minnesota, USA.